My name is Marcell Hanson, and you're listening to Small Habits, Big Changes. Let's dive in. Welcome. I want to start with a little story. It's a true story, actually. Happened this past week. I was driving in my neighborhood, headed over to run an errand, and I probably 3 blocks away from my house, and I came across what had appeared to be just seconds before an accident. A 2-way stop, and the person headed east through that intersection, took the stop sign, and then started to proceed through the intersection. And what appeared to happen was somebody heading southbound, traveling probably faster than the school zone speed limit. The school's about 100 yards away, and impact was made the front of the southbound car, front quarter panel of the eastbound car. So for those of you who are geographically challenged, there's a car traveling on Smith Street, comes to an intersection, but it's a 2-way stop, and stops and proceeds through the intersection, and car traveling on a perpendicular street B either is traveling too fast or doesn't see this car in time, and impact is made. That impact was made and probably 4 or 5 seconds elapsed, and I came around that corner. So I was a few hundred feet away by the time I was turning on the same street that the first car pulled out on, going the opposite direction. I stopped right as the car was there, rolled down my window, and checked to see if they were all right. Are you okay? Are you hurt? And this driver was pretty shaken up in that moment. They commented that they felt sick to their stomach. Basically, what normal response is when you have an adrenaline rush. They can feel like that pounding out of your chest and stomach upset and a little bit of disorientation. It's a shock. Nobody in that situation expects to be hit, and the impact in and of itself, regardless of speed, even regardless of a lower speed, the impact is really jarring psychologically, not just physically. And so we had a discussion for a few minutes, ascertaining whether or not they were able to be coherent in that moment, just engaging in friendly conversation. At this time, the other driver who made the impact was out checking out their car and seemed to me a little on the lackadaisical side as far as coming and addressing the other driver directly, asking if they were all right. They seemed a bit more concerned with their car, and maybe they were a little disoriented or shocked as well. It's hard to know what was going on. I didn't know either of these people. And like I said, I came onto the scene just probably 5-6 seconds after the impact. So I didn't actually see it with my own eyes. And by this time, which was probably 30, 45 seconds, a minute later, more cars were coming down that same route. Because it was garbage day and there was garbage bins out, they really needed some assistance. It's clear that many, many people on the road today with a regular driver's license should not be driving. These people had such hard time getting through a space that was as big as their car plus 2 feet on each side. Car after car, I couldn't understand why everyone was struggling. It wasn't that I was prodding them to go faster or anything. It's just that they were literally inching along, trying to ensure that they weren't going to hit this car that was just hit and the garbage can on the other side. And they were nowhere near either. Just car after car, 5-6 cars came through. Also, I did mention there was a school zone. It's also school drop off time. It's about 8:50 a.m. So I wave a few of those cars through. I left my vehicle running with hazards on to kind of prevent anyone from coming down that street. Literally was at the intersection. Meanwhile, the car that did the impact is still parked there. In fact, I believe they pulled the car forward a little bit, as did the impacted car, backed up a little bit. So they weren't right in the intersection. And throughout the course of this 5, 10, later became 30, 40 minutes. But in the first few minutes, there was very little interaction between the two drivers. It was mostly myself talking with the driver that had been impacted, and a couple times the other driver kind of wandered over, a little hasty in their action. I kind of wandered over and said, "Is the driver all right?" You know, and I replied, like the driver was, 20 feet off asking a question. It wasn't very personal. It was pretty removed, and asked if the driver was all right. And I was like, they're just a little shaken up. Like, give them a minute. And a few minutes passed, and that driver went back to their car. I think they took some pictures of their car, and then they were on the phone talking to someone, telling them that what sounded like that they were late because of this reason, like that there was an accident. And then a few more minutes went by, and a witness emerged from the corner, in their house coat and sunglasses and a big cup of coffee, and claimed to have seen the whole thing. And so was just sort of observing, continued to observe at that time. It was probably about 9. So a few minutes go by, and the driver that I'm attending to, that I'm having a conversation with, is starting to calm, but it's taking a few minutes to get their bearings back. The other driver comes over whilst I am flagging people through, and writes down their information and gives it to the driver that I was speaking with directly. I ended up pushing that garbage can out of the way, the big commercial size one, because people just could not figure out how to drive through a very large passageway. I'm not even sure. I really am beside myself. I was wondering what was going on for person after person after person. And we are right in a school zone. It's a high school, and so some of them may have been really young drivers, but it was clear that an intersection would look out for sure. So after they had shared information, the other driver had come back after I had finished moving the garbage can and waved a couple more cars through. And the other driver said, "Well, are they going to get a tow truck, or like what's going on?" And kind of, again, in like a hasty way, it was interesting to me that that's how the transaction went. And again, it was, requested, like, we'll figure that out. They're just taking a breather, having a drink of water, trying to gather themselves, and then they'll go about their day, right? And that was when the other driver said, like, "Okay, well, I got to go." And you may have found it annoying in how I just told that story, how I eliminated pronouns and eliminated makes and models and ethnicities, because in my mind, that's not at all what I want any of you to walk away with. This was an instance that probably happens multiple times a day in every city around the world. Someone bumps into someone else. Oftentimes, people bump into other people, whether in a car or on a bicycle or just walking, because of a few reasons. They are not paying full attention to what's going on, the lack of awareness. More than likely, both of those fall under the category of being distracted. It's not being present in the moment. And that's what I hope to impress upon each of you, if you're not just drastically aware of where your attention is at all times. Dude, this could have been a deadly accident. Deadly. The driver that was impacted was probably 4 feet shy of being T-boned and probably killed. Doesn't really matter the speed, because other factors come into what can happen and how things can really get out of hand really quickly. The age of the drivers, maybe their heart condition, maybe a prescription drug that they're on that still allows them to drive, but maybe in that moment the adrenaline is, too much. I think we're all guilty at some point of driving or walking or riding or even having a conversation whilst distracted. Our mind is elsewhere, crunching numbers, maybe working through a grocery list. I'm not trying to scare anybody, or this message is not at all fear-based. It's really about embracing the blessing that is our life. And it's one thing, if you don't want to be here, that's one thing. Like, don't take somebody else innocently out with you, right? But when you're driving a 3, 4, 5, 6, I do 7,000 pound vehicle, I think we take for granted that pure privilege and also don't take seriously the responsibility. It gets really flippant because in the city, many people drive, many people are on the bus or on a bicycle. It's like a way of life. Maybe out rurally, it's more people on the tractor or heavy machinery. And I grew up around heavy machinery. There's always a forklift running, which has a very tight turning radius, can literally like turn on a wheel, right? I mean, my old Volvo is almost like a forklift. Forklift around, always a grader, tractor, three-wheelers, motorcycles. The guy that lived behind us had a big Harley. There were, race cars around, and we were at the racetrack, and then you're in the pits, and fast moving cars are around you all the time. That was my upbringing. So I do have a pretty good sense of being a defensive driver. Knock on wood, I've never been like in a head-on collision. Hope I never am. I was in a almost T-bone, but other than that, minor fender benders, never been in a catastrophic car accident. And I think that with the level of distraction, and this isn't just about being on your phone. I don't know if that driver was on their phone or not. I have no idea. I didn't even go over and look at their car. I could see them looking at their car, and I could see from the side that it was only in the front damage, but I didn't go over. So I don't know what was going on. I know the one that was impacted was not on the phone, because when I asked them if they'd like to, where they were going, and they were headed to meet a family member, I asked if they wanted to text them, and this person had to, get their phone out of like a locked glove box, right? So it's not just about being on the phone. It could be eating or drinking, or of course being on the phone, but not even those things, just mentally not being present, just having your mind on something else. I think we've all had it happen where we're thinking of something and we miss our turn, or we might be doing a to-do list in our head, or thinking about what we have on our docket for tomorrow, or a phone call we need to make, or a conversation we just had. We're replaying that or having that go on in our head while we're driving. Many of you might even be listening to me right now while you're driving. And I hope you're not, actually, because if you're interested in the story and you've been on this long, you're probably distracted. It's hard to listen to someone tell a story, even if you're not, engaged in it, like responding to it, and be really present with what's going on. You got to really be paying attention these days, because you may be the only one in the interaction paying attention. You may be the one that hits the brakes or makes it through the intersection before someone else who they themselves are distracted hit you, right? So it's a big opportunity for being accountable for your actions. It really could have been a deadly impact that I came around the corner on. And I have friends who stopped driving in this town, even, because this town is not even like a big metropolitan city. It's not like driving in Seattle or San Diego, where deaths on the road happen every day, or catastrophic accidents and deaths. Most of the time, the speed limit's like 25 where I'm driving, 25 to 40. It's pretty minimal. And because of that, I think it's easy to speed. Because of faster electric cars, it's easier to speed up too, and to go much faster within a block space from stop sign to stop sign than 20, 30, or 40 miles per hour. I just want to impress upon everyone out there who is a driver, who does drive daily, whether you're driving just yourself, or you have a loved one, or you have a carpool that you drive with, or you're carrying precious cargo like kids or pets, just to really be present. It's a little bit of a PSA. I think having a cat for 2 decades really has taught me, especially in the more recent years, probably the last decade, to really be present and thankful. I think that we can learn a lot from our pets, and being present and being in the moment and just being. We can learn a lot from them that way. And the lack of humanity that was expressed by the driver who hit the other driver is still disturbing to me. I sat with them for the driver that was impacted. I sat with them and had a conversation, talked about a number of things actually. It was a lovely person for probably 40 minutes. A couple minutes in, and I was actually headed to an appointment and started at 9 o'clock. And at 9:03, I just texted and said, "Hey, I just been stopped. There's an accident. I'm a minute away, but I'm going to be late." And when I got to my appointment, I was like 35, 40 minutes late. The practitioner that I was meeting with had a similar experience of like just encountering, a stranger who was in a scary situation and had a lovely connection with them. And it's just a reminder. It really is a reminder that we can make such a difference in someone's day with our behavior, our simple behaviors. And by taking responsibility and being present, caring more about the person across from you than the damage to a vehicle, it's just one way to maintain and fully express and even embrace our humanity. I think even if you're ever on Instagram or YouTube, TikTok, there are endless videos of animals of different species that help each other when they're hurt or, wounded or stuck somewhere. Different species and species alike. Dogs that let other dogs jump up on their back so they can get the food off the counter. Birds that are cleaning other birds. It's symbiotic relationship. Like, we can learn so much from how animals care for each other. Like I said, interspecies and the like, because it was a very small, in many ways, a very small exchange that was absent. It would have taken 15 seconds, maybe even 6 seconds for this driver to come over and literally look this other driver in the eye and ask if they were all right, and to show care and love to this person that they had just impacted. I will say, in closing, I followed up with that driver that was impacted. I didn't get the contact information for the other person, so I did follow up with the one that was impacted and clearly shaken at the experience. Followed up later, and they are doing fine. I have a doctor's appointment. Actually, it was today, and hopefully everything went well. And they have my phone number. They actually literally live just a couple blocks away. So their own neighborhood as well. So I'll leave you with that, and I hope that my story of this last week just resonates in part with you. If it does, feel free to share it with someone you think it may also bring levity or reminder to. But don't drive distracted. Don't have a conversation distracted. Don't ride a bike or do anything else distracted. Just be in the moment. Just be in the moment. If you got something you're thinking about or a phone call you have to make, pull over and do it. Just pull over. It only takes a few seconds to make the right decision, and it also only takes a few seconds to make the wrong one. I hope none of you ever experience being in, a vehicular collision. But if you are, I hope that you're all right and that the other person is all right, and that you can utilize that opportunity as just that, an opportunity to connect with another human being. Until next week, I wish you all well. Be safe, be smart, be present, and most of all, be awesome. Thank you so much for listening today. If you feel any part of this episode resonated with you, then please consider sharing it with a friend who may also find value in it. And remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And before you go, did you know we have a fantastic free text community? If you want more bite-sized health hacks and reminders delivered directly to your phone, absolutely free, then text keyword YES to 206-483-2960. Again, that's keyword YES to 206-483-2960. And we'll see you on the inside.